muted. There you are.
What's going on?
I am quarantined. I am home with 3 children and a wife that's a teacher, and we're trying to find stuff that isn't lacrosse. So we're going to talk about lacrosse.
Okay.
So myself and Chris Colin have been talking about doing something like this for years. Always on bar stools, we come up with this brilliant idea that we're going to start a podcast, and we never get around to it because we're both so busy. Well, we're out of excuses. We're home.
Well, we're home for now. Let's get the ball rolling here.
So here's why I wanted to talk to you. We did one with me, Colin, and John Losey. Your guest number 2. I've known you for 25 years. Maybe not known you, but known of you.
Okay.
So 2 years ago, or last year, we're doing Grosse Pointe South versus De La Salle in a regional final.
I believe that was North.
North. Okay. I remember Bob McCool was there, but it's North versus De La Salle. We get done. We go to the bar. It's me, you, and Garbs. And Garbs starts asking you questions about your life, and my jaw hits the bar. I knew none of this about you.
Okay.
So you are the rare bird, the trifecta, player, coach, official. But I want to go back and just kind of do an hour-long, this is your life, and you tell some stories, if that's cool.
Okay. I don't know what I can tell you, but we'll give it a shot.
Start with this. Where were you born? Where were you raised?
I was born and raised in Hastings, Michigan.
Okay.
Small town, about 50 miles west of Lansing.
Okay. What'd you do after high school?
I worked for Hastings Manufacturing Company. I worked there for about a year, and I decided it was time to go to school.
Okay. And where'd you end up at school?
I went to Ferris State. I was there for a year, and I ran out of money. So I went back to work, and then I got drafted.
Thank you for your service.
Into the Army. So, I was in the, I got out of the Army in 1971.
Okay.
And I was, I started dating my wife in 68, 69. And we kept in touch through the Army and everything. We got married when I got out of the service, and I went to Michigan State.
I thought you ended up in Florida at one point. Do I remember that wrong?
Right. No, we did. I went to Florida in 1980.
Okay.
We lived there for a year, moved back the next year. So.
Okay. And went to state, and had you ever seen a lacrosse stick before you ended up at Michigan State?
The only time I saw a lacrosse stick when I was visiting my wife, who was at Michigan State at the time. She was real good friends and went to school with Bob Stevenson. I don't know if you know Bob.
The legend, yes.
And we went to his room, and I saw this thing standing up with the old wooden stick, with the old hickory stick with the leather straps and everything. So I asked him what that was, because I'd never seen it. And he said, well, that's a lacrosse stick. Okay, what's that? So it kind of went on to explain it to me. And I said, that's pretty cool. So when I got out of the Army, it was at Michigan State. I was walking through the men's intramural building, and they had what they called a big turf arena in there. It was huge. It was about the size of 6 or 8 gyms. And I saw them practicing. And when I saw them, I was looking at them, and then I saw Bob down there. So I went down and waited till after practice, talked to Bob. I said, Bob, this looks like a pretty cool game. I said, can anybody play? He said, yeah, just go. Let me introduce you to the coach. So, and he did. So I talked with the coach for a bit. His name, I believe, was Turf Kaufman. Or no, Ted Swoboda. Maybe. Turf was before him. So anyway, I talked to him. I had to go see the AD, who at that time was Bert Smith. I talked to him and said, okay, you give me 2 years of eligibility, for being in the Army, and then I had another year. I had to sit out of the year because I was a transfer student. So the following fall is when I started practicing. I did a little bit in the springtime with them. The following spring, in spring of '72, I was able to practice, but I couldn't play that year.
So here's where I'm just laughing. As a coach, how big are you? 6'3"?
6'3".
6'3".
Yeah.
You're just sitting there on the track, and this 6'3" former Army soldier, built like a brick, you-know-what house, walks up to you and says, I would like to try your sport. That's every coach's dream.
Well, I wasn't, I had no idea what I was getting into. I knew nothing about the game. And so I just, at that time, the only equipment they gave us was a helmet and shoulder pads, gloves, and I think elbow pads. They didn't have sticks. That we had to go buy your own sticks and whatever else you wanted. Had to buy our own uniforms.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think our budget was like $1,500 for the varsity program.
So how many years? You played 3 years, in what position?
I played everything but goalie.
Everything but goalie.
I played everything at one point. I even played, I was a backup to the backup goalie. So I got to play one half of a game down in Hillsdale, and it was not pretty.
Yeah, I think we've all drawn that short straw at some point in our lives and goes, yeah, give me the goalie stick.
Yeah. But it was fun.
So I got the ability to share my screen, and I was going through Facebook and saw some photos, and I want to share with the world your Michigan State team photo. That
Where did you
beard
get that? Oh my God!
is fantastic for starters. The leather gloves that look like they have no flexibility and that old wood stick are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then I found the team photo that you had. There's the 73 team. So any great stories from that team, whether it was wins, road trips, buses, hotels, you name it?
Oh, geez. Yeah, I'll get to that. My wife just reminded me of the game against Michigan. I'll get to that, but we had some wild characters on that team. I know Val Washington.
Oh yeah.
Hebert's in there somewhere. He's in the front row, I think.
18 right
18,
here.
Yeah, Val's in the middle. Where am I? I can't know. I'm in the middle.
Right there, big 22.
Yeah. Let's see. Who else was on that team? I don't know if you know Steve Urban. The guy 21 is Andy Obelnicki. He was Hebert's backup. We had another guy I can't figure. I'm looking here. Trying to find my buddy. Number 16. He was kind of my tutor. He kind of took me under his wing. His name was Tom Hardenberg, and he was a helicopter pilot in the Navy.
Okay.
And his claim to fame was he got to pick up one of the astronauts on one of the from the ocean when they landed in the ocean. He got to
really
pick them up. Yeah.
That's a pretty cool piece of history to be a part of.
Yeah. And he was a good guy. He kind of took me under his wing because I had no concept of the game. And I remember first time coach ever put me into the practice. I mean, I could do the line drills, and so he says, "Hubbell, get in there and play crease attack. Okay.
Where's the crease, coach?
Yeah, I figured out where the crease was. So I'm standing there running back and forth. And Tom Hardenberg, the guy I was telling you about, he gets the ball out in front of the crease. And he tells me to get down, get down, get down. So I didn't know he meant get down behind the goal. So I ducked.
No kidding.
I just ducked. And he just goes up and said, "What the hell is that?" I had no idea. So after that, he kind of, I said, "Look, I don't know what I'm doing here. I need some help." So he took me under his wing and kind of coached me along for the next year or so, and got me to be a halfway decent player.
What was your best skill? Were you a ground ball guy? Were you the immovable screen on picks? Were you a shooter? Were you a feeder? What was your go-to skill?
My go-to skill. So hang on, my phone is running out. My phone. I gotta plug my phone in here. It's down.
No worries.
So my go-to, well, I was kind of a jack of all trades. I got to be somewhat proficient at face-offs, as I played midi a lot. I played the crease attack my senior year. I was terrible at defense. So about the only thing I did was my middies. I did face-offs. I was on the third midfield line. And then one of our attackmen went down, so they switched me to attack. And then I got to just run around and raise havoc on the crease. So
3 years at Michigan State.
Yes.
You're with your wife since 68, so that takes you to about 73, 74 when you graduated?
I graduated 74.
Okay.
And then my wife got a job in Alpena with the Alpena Intermediate School District, and I still had one semester left before I graduated. So she went off to Alpena, and I went down and lived in the graduate dorm for a semester, and graduated in December, and then joined her back up in Alpena. Looking for a job, I ended up with the Alpena Boys Club for a year. I got, working with the kids in the boys club. Then we were up there for 2 years. We were in Alpena, yeah. And then the funding ran out for my job, so I decided I had some more GI money left. So I went back to school. Yeah, we had a child. My first son was born, Zachary. And we went back to school. Debbie got a job with Okemos, Kinawa Middle School in Okemos. She worked for the intermediate district down there. And she was a special ed teacher there while I went to school. I go hang out after classes watch the lacrosse team play and practice. Still knew a bunch of guys on the team. So that was nice. A friend of mine, I don't know, who Fred Hartman was. He was the coach at that time. And then after I was there for another 2 years at Michigan State. I graduated in 78. We bought a nursery school in Lansing on Mount Hope. It's called Sunshine House Child Development Center.
Is it still there?
The house is there. They turned it into a residence again. It was a big old farmhouse. And with the people we bought it from were good friends of ours. My wife knew them in grad school. So we bought the school from them. Um, we ran it for a year. I couldn't find a job in 1978 in phys ed. There was not a lot of use for phys ed people back then. So I ended up, we both applied for other jobs. The interesting thing is we got both, we were accepted to go to Alaska. We were going to go to Alaska. And a friend, one of the guys my wife was working with, spent a couple of years in Alaska and was telling us all about it. And we said, well, that sounds kind of cool. You know, they made a lot of money. They made a boatload of money. They paid. Of course, that was when the pipeline was being built.
Okay.
And they were making boatloads of money. They were going to pay us a lot. So we ended up talking to people. My wife called up there. We had made reservations to go there. We were going to fly up there. My wife got to talking to somebody up there and then wanted to know what we had to do with childcare. What was that like up there? And the guy said, well, you know, you can get one of the natives up there. They'll watch your kid while you go around to your school district. And we found out that her school district would have been 10,000 square miles.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, she had her own bush pilot, and they would fly her. She could be gone for several days at a time, traveling around to all her school districts, being a special education teacher.
Wow.
I had a job lined up as a phys ed teacher and as a basketball coach. And they would fly us to neighboring villages and, go into different facilities and arenas to play basketball. So we talked about that, and he said, well, with our son only being a couple of years old, she didn't feel good. We were there for a year. I kind of liked it there. My wife didn't. So she decided she was going to apply back to Michigan. She went up in the summer. She got an interview with Grosse Pointe. And when she left, she told him she needed to know because school was a couple of weeks away. We needed to make plans, come up, find a place to live. So they called her before she got on the plane. They offered her the job in Grosse Pointe, split between, I think, north and south at the time. She was traveling between both schools. She came back and we packed our bags and drove back up north. I couldn't find a job. But I ended up substitute teaching in Detroit.
So you were at the Detroit PSO?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Did that for about 3 years. That was in fall of '80. I'd work and then I'd get laid off at the end of the year. And that went on for, 3 years, I think, 2 years. So finally, I just gave that up because I couldn't see doing that and getting laid off every year. So I got a job as a manager for Little Caesars, operating one of their, at the time, was called a pizza station.
Okay.
They had a pizza station they had them all over the city. I was working at the one on Gratiot and 12 Mile. I worked there for a while. Then they sent me to 14 and Van Dyke. I was out there for a while. Then I got recalled. They recalled me back to teaching, and this time I didn't have to sub. I got a regular position.
So which school were you at in Detroit?
Oh, where was I? Yeah, that before that when I first started. It was down by the old Olympia Stadium. I can't remember the name of the school now. They tore it down after a while. Then I got transferred to a couple of what they call primary schools. They were like K through 3, grades K through 3. And I was split between 2 of them. So I did that for a couple of years.
I'm just picturing big 6'3" Steve and all these little kindergartners in phys ed class.
Yeah. It was fun times. Kids were good for the most part, you know. You just went with the flow most of the time. But I never had a gym. I either had to do it in the auditorium or in a classroom.
Huh.
Because there was only one gym teacher, and he had the gym, but because they had a big population of students, they put me, and I would go into they had a small auditorium where I did activities in there, and sometimes I would end up in a classroom that wasn't being used.
So I think what we've gotten through so far was about our first beer after that game. And my jaw is on the table going, okay, you were in the Army. You were in Vietnam. You almost moved to Alaska. You moved to Alpena. You moved to Florida. You moved to Okemos. Your wife has stuck with you this entire time. You're raising a family. You're owning a daycare. You're a substitute teacher. You're a pizza manager. And now you're a Detroit PSL phys ed teacher for kindergartners through 3rd graders. And I'm going, what? I thought I knew this guy. I knew nothing about you. And so then we haven't even started talking lacrosse yet. We haven't even started talking about you getting back into the game and starting programs and coaching.
Well, we got back, and I was back in Detroit. I finally got a job, and I was reading the paper one day, and I saw an ad that they needed lacrosse officials. No, I did the reffing first. My wife is telling me what I did. So anyway, I saw an ad.
Probably.
Yeah, she's right more than I am. That's why I keep her around. She keeps me correctable. So anyway, I answered this ad, and I talked to the guy. His name was Art Hoffman. He was the coach at Country Day at the time. And so I talked to him. He said, well, come on out. Meet me at Cranbrook. And, I'll give you the test. I said, okay. So I went out there, took the test. And I don't know where he came up with the test because I had no idea. They had a test at that time. I didn't know. So anyway, I got a job. I got hired as I started my officiating career. That's spring.
So this is like 83, 84?
I think it was 82.
82.
Yeah.
So there's all of 4 teams in the state?
I think 5. I'm trying to think back. I know there was Country Day, Cranbrook, Brother Rice, Catholic Central, and I think Lance Cruz.
Okay.
And there might have been, I don't remember doing any Lance Cruz North games at that time, or they may have come on a year after that or so. And I remember there was, when De La Salle came on, that was a couple of years later, maybe 83, De La Salle joined. And there was only 6 or 7 teams for a while. So I did that for a couple of years. Then I answered the call. Saw another ad in the paper that De La Salle was looking for an assistant coach or a JV coach. So I said, well, okay, this would really help out my phys ed career a lot here,
Yeah.
So I went out there, interviewed with the AD, and I got the job. So That started my coaching career out there.
So if you and Jolly were on the same staff at the same time, I think you hold the record for tallest coaching staff.
Probably. Yeah.
So I was at the High School Lacrosse Coaches Hall of Fame a couple weeks back, and they were telling stories that it was it Dave Phillips was the Catholic Central coach.
Yes.
He and Ambrose at Rice didn't have enough teams to play, so it was those two, the Rice and the CC guy, oil and water, driving around to the other Catholic League schools, meeting with athletic directors saying, we have a team and no one to play. Would you please add boys, men's varsity lacrosse? And that's how De La Salle got their program, as the AD walked into Mike Jolly's room and said, you ever heard of this game lacrosse? They think we should start a team.
Yeah.
We're doing these stories. So
Mike, I know Mike played at Michigan State before I did. Him and there's a bunch of guys. Bill Praler, I don't know if you know Bill. He coached at Waverly, started the Waverly program. The story you used to tell me about those guys back in those days it was crazy what those guys did compared to what they do now.
Oh, I know.
So anyway,
so you landed De La Salle as the JV coach.
Correct.
And you've got a bunch of, I'm going to make my stereotype, one of my best friends is a De La Salle grad. I'm the godfather of his kid. He's the godfather of my kid. I say this all in jest. But you've got a bunch of probably Italian, Polish, Catholic kids from the East Side that have been baseball all their life and never seen a lacrosse stick before.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. At the time, he had 3 teams. He had the varsity, JV, and a freshman team. And most of the freshman kids had never seen a lacrosse stick. And he'd end up with 30, 40 kids on that freshman team.
Wow.
A lot of kids. And so consequently, I had a pretty good group of kids coming up as freshmen who got to, the freshman coach that I had was very good. And then they got another brother came in, became a coach. And he was very young, very ambitious, worked real well with the kids. He was there for a couple of years, then he went off to do his work in the city of New York, in the inner city, work with the inner city kids. So his teams always came up when they got to me. They were already pretty good players.
So how many years were you at JV at De La Salle? Do you remember the years?
I think I was there 85 to 89.
Okay.
84 to 89, somewhere in there. I know because I started the program at Grosse Pointe North in 1990.
I'm going to get to that. I want to go back to De La Salle.
Okay.
Do you have any good Rob Dameron stories?
All I know, he was a very good player. He was gone when I was there. He had graduated, and he was at Michigan State.
Okay. Because I think he was 89 out of De La Salle.
Yeah, he was gone as a player. I think that might have been his last year there, 89. But I didn't associate much with those guys. We always had our games separate, so I really didn't get to talk to much of the varsity guys. They had a separate dressing room from us. So I never got to know them very well.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing back in those days in the 80s. You got a game wherever you could find one. So unless we were going down to like Cincinnati or Columbus or one of the Ohio or Pennsylvania teams were coming up here, we didn't have the doubleheaders. It wasn't like we got on a bus with the varsity and we went, to Lance Cruz or CC or wherever. We had our game, they had their game, and for whatever reason, the schedules, for lack of officials or whatever, never lined up.
Yeah. I don't know what happened to the officials. When I got into officiating in the early 80s, we had a guy who was our signer. His name was Bill Scheidrich. Um, and he used to schedule our games for us. I think we got paid like $35 a game, something like that.
Yeah.
Wasn't much. And he went on. I know when the Turbos were playing downtown, I know he refereed the professional league, the indoor lacrosse league for a while.
No kidding.
And I don't know what happened to him after the Turbos left. I never heard from him after that. So
Okay. So 89, you're coaching De La Salle JV. Let me guess. There's another ad in the paper, and Grosse Pointe wants to start a program.
No. I wanted to start the program in Grosse Pointe.
Oh, okay.
Because my son was going to North, and he wanted to play, but they didn't have a team, so he went down to South to play Grosse Pointe South.
Gotcha.
And Chris Ferrari happened to be the coach down there at the time. So he played down there as a freshman for 1 year, and I said, I can't have that. He can't go down. He's not going to play at South anymore. So I, with the help of my wife, we kind of got together. Because she worked at North, she knew all the kids there, and she was able to connect with the kids, and she sent out some flyers to kids, and we kind of recruited enough kids to play, but we didn't have any money. I didn't know how I was going to do this. I talked to the athletic director, Tom Garkey, a couple of occasions to start a lacrosse program, but he said it wasn't in the budget. So how can I get this off the ground? So what I did was I went into his, they had the Grosse Pointe North Coaches Club there, and they ran fundraisers for all the different sports. And I said, okay, this is what I want to do. So I went into their meeting. I prepared a budget. I prepared a slideshow. And I went in there and I talked for about half an hour, 45 minutes. I didn't ask them to give me money. I asked them to loan me some money. And the club would pay it back. They had this program back then called Swim for Sports, where all the athletes would go in and they'd swim laps and raise money for each lap they did.
Yeah.
And we would pay this money back. We would pay this loan back with our Swim for Sports money. We wouldn't take any money out of their budget for our program. We would put money back into it. And they said, okay. So they gave me $1,500. That bought all the game balls, the nets, the goals. I can't remember what else we bought with that money. Water bottles, everything I needed to run the game.
Yeah.
Scorebook, all that stuff. The next thing I had to come up with was where to play. Because they weren't going to let me use the football field at North. So we had to come up with a place to play. So to do that, I had to go through the neighborhood club because they were in charge of all the fields on all the parks in the city. So I had to go through them.
Yep.
So I sat with them for a while and got to know them. And they said, well, okay, we can put you, you can go to Parcells, play at Parcells. And you could, you could practice. They had a field behind North, at the north end of the stadium. That was what I think they called their marching band field. It wasn't a full field, but it was big enough so we could run practices there. So we practiced there. We played our games at Parcells. And, we started off, we weren't very good. I had 3 kids that I played, my son being one of them, Zachary. I had 2 kids that played for Liggett, transferred to North. And those are the only 3 kids I had with any experience. So anyway, I had a bunch of some pretty good athletes on the team. That could. I had a couple of soccer players that I really liked. One was he was probably the fastest kid in the school. He couldn't hang on to the ball. He could outrun anybody. I mean, he was all-state soccer player. He was a world-class sailor.
I have company, by the way.
Okay. Hi guys, how you doing?
Good.
Say hi to Mr. Hubbell.
Good.
How are you?
Good.
So how do you like being home with Dad?
Good. Good.
Yeah,
All right, good.
spent a lot of time with him. All right.
We're going to keep talking. So can you go out and I'll be out in a minute?
Yeah.
All right, love you.
Read this.
All right, I will read this.
Daddy, I got a new roll.
I love it. All right, I'll be right out. All right, so I want to go back to the Purcell's field
Okay.
because I played at Rice the 90, 91, 92, and 93 seasons.
Okay.
And I remember going out to your field, and there was a big manhole cover in the middle of the field and a cone sitting on top of it. Now, we're playing out at St. Mary's at the time, so it's not like we've got these luxury turf fields and everything else. But we look at it, and I won't say who the coach was, but he looks over at the defenseman. He goes, I got a $20 bounty. Any of you guys knock a kid into the manhole cover, I'll give you $20.
I have no knowledge of that. So
I'm almost positive it was that park that field at the park. I mean, it was just such a fun time in lacrosse because it was the Wild West. You'd show up to school and you go, all right, here's our schedule. And you look at the schedule and go, we're playing Grosse Pointe North. When did they get a team? Like, you know, there was no internet. There was no Twitter. There was no MSLCA.com to look at the regions. It was you and Jolly and Hebert and you know, Rometty and those guys that would just get together in a room and pull out pads of paper and make up a schedule.
Yeah, that's what we did. We'd meet at somebody's school, and you know, you go in there and okay, these are my dates, and we go around the table, around the room. Okay, I got an opening here. I got an opening there. You know, you had your rival games that you had to get in. Your conference, you know, your league games. And then you could fill in with other teams. So we had, I think I started out first couple of years with a 14-game schedule. And then one year I went to 18 games, which was a disaster.
Not enough practice time?
No, not enough practice time. I didn't have enough talented kids. I shouldn't say enough talent with skill levels where they could just go from game to game to game. They had to practice. So I backed off on that for a while. But we weren't very. I had a couple of good players, you know, a couple of years. They got to be pretty skilled, but they didn't follow through with it for whatever reason. You know. So I did that for 10 years at North. And then I just decided it was time for another change. Went back to officiating.
So you founded the North program.
Yes.
You played at Michigan State. You coached De La Salle JV. You at one time were one of, a half dozen officials in the state in 1983. I'm sitting there on this bar stool going, I was on the teams that played against you. Like, your first season, I was on the field against you, and I never knew that. I've known you for 10 years as an official.
Yeah.
You know, you just, hey, I got a game today. Who am I with? Oh, I'm with Hubbell. Oh, I'm with Garbs. You know, I'm with Effin. You know, never sat on a bar stool and learned any of these stories about you. And I'm going back and going, there's probably a shoebox in my parents' house somewhere with, you know, 35 millimeter film photos from those games. Like, my parents took pictures and videos at every game they went to, and they never missed a game. I found old VHS tapes that we got converted to DVD of Bob Bowery reffing my games, me against Mike Van Antwerp at Okemos as head coach. He's playing for U of D. I'm playing for Rice. Don Gay's his coach. I've got Kevin Morrow as my coach, and I think Bowery's on the field going, no, you can't do. You know, it's like, that's the voice. You can't miss that one.
I know. Don Gay was at UD, right?
Yep, Don Gay was at
Yeah.
UD. And then
Yeah,
after
okay.
U of D, he went over to Bloomfield with
Yes.
Kaminskis.
Yes. Yeah. I remember playing against Don Gay when I was at De La Salle. They'd come out and play with us, and we always, I think we played them pretty good. Those were always pretty good games. Don was a good coach. Took good care of the kids, and we had some exciting games.
There was such a small schedule of teams back then that you played everybody, but
Yes.
you really got to know the guys in your backyard. So for us at Rice, we knew all the Country Day kids. We knew all the Cranbrook kids. Seaholm started their program when I was at Rice, so we got to know those guys pretty well. And then there was a lot of those guys from the Beverly Hills, Farmington Hills area that might have gone to Sorrows, and half the class went to CC and half the class went to Rice. So we knew all the Renane brothers and those guys. So we didn't have a lot of real big rivalries with a lot of the East Side guys because, Lance Cruz had Lance Cruz North, and Grosse Pointe South had Grosse Pointe North. And, De La Salle was kind of a Catholic league, and they were a rival, but we were just so focused on kill against CC that, it was such a small community. And like I said, I was going through, I've got archives of the 1991 program from the Scholastic Lacrosse Association's championship. And they've got every single roster in here and every single team, whether you made it to the Final Four or not. So the Grosse Pointe South or Grosse Pointe North, it's got Grosse Pointe South in here, but not North.
When was that?
91 championship. So Ferrari's the head coach.
Yep.
And I don't see a Hubbell on the roster. So for whatever reason, they didn't get your roster in here.
Yeah. Maybe I didn't submit it. I don't know.
Well, you're not in the ranking, so maybe it was we're a year off on this.
Well, we were never in the ranking, so.
So 91, these are the teams in the state. Cranbrook, Rice,
92, I'm sorry.
Because Zach graduated in 94.
Yeah.
Started the team in 92.
Yeah, should have been there 92.
I'm a year off. Okay.
That was my fault.
91.
Again, my wife just corrected me, so.
Thank you. We've got Cranbrook, Rice, De La Salle, Country Day, CC, Grosse Pointe North, Lance Cruz North, Grosse Pointe South, Pioneer, U of D Jesuit, Lance Cruz, Liggett, Forest Hills, Seaholm, East Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor, Huron, and Troy. And I want to say that was the first year that Troy had their program. That was probably the first year that Seaholm might have had their program. Or maybe Seaholm was the year prior.
Seaholm was there before that. They were there in the 80s.
Okay.
Because I coached against Aaron Frank when he was at Seaholm.
Okay.
When he's just starting the Seaholm program.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the rosters or the schedules here. East Grand Rapids went 1-6 that year. That means they could only find 7 games, and yet you've got schools like Pioneer that found 15 games.
Yeah.
But that's what it was. It was the Wild West. If you were willing to drive to Grand Rapids, you could play East Grand Rapids. If they weren't,
well, we did. We went up there a couple of years in a row and played them. We'd get waxed every year, but we'd go up there and play. Because we got games.
So all you old, and I mean old very respectfully, but all you old Michigan State guys ended up at these communities where your kid got a stick or your kid found your old stick and wanted to play, and you started programs. And I bet if I go through that old roster, there's probably 10 programs in the state that were founded by somebody on one of those Michigan State teams that just said, sure, I'll coach. Sure, I'll ref.
Yeah. Who was the guy? Grady. He played at Michigan State.
Yeah.
Sean did. A bunch of guys ended up coaching all over the place. So it was a great thing to do.
So he was at Okemos forever, and then he's now stepped back, and Mike Van Antwerp, who also played at Michigan State, was one of the last guys as part of that program, is now the head coach there. And I think he was at Holt before that. Holt or Howell. I know it started with an H.
Maybe Howell.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really kind of funny that, I keep going back to that Grosse Pointe De La Salle game or Grosse Pointe South De La Salle game. And I'm sitting there on the bar stool and Garbs is peppering you with all these questions. And I'm going, wait a minute. That means you've repped my games. That means you've coached in games I was against you. I had no idea that you were a phys ed teacher, owned a nursery, a daycare, all this stuff. So let's finish up the Grosse Pointe North. You get through 10 years there. Your son's graduated. You decide that you're going to step back from coaching.
Go back.
You put the stripes on. And now for the last 20 years, you've been a high school official.
Yep.
So just kind of a rapid fire, quick questions. Do you have a favorite memory as a coach, a favorite game as a coach, a favorite memory as a player, and a favorite memory as an official?
Yeah, I have a lot of memories of that. Several games as a coach with De La Salle. We had one game against Lance Cruz North that went to 6 overtimes.
All right, shame on the officials. By the third overtime, just start throwing flags and gives guys man-up situations to get out of there.
They did. I kept and these guys kept just going out there and playing, and they get a penalty, we get a penalty, we'd go man up, they'd go man up. Finally, I said, "Look, I just came over here, drew up this play on my little notepad I had there. I set up a 1-4-1, double screen on this side. Told the guy, you're going to get the face off. I said, when you do, just run down the field. Your attack man's going to come around, just double screen. You hit him with the pass and throw it in." And that's what they did, and we ended up winning the game in 6 overtimes.
Wow. All right, what about as a player? Besides being told to get down and you cried on the ground and didn't go behind the X.
Well, I have another good game to tell you about. Back in the 80s, they used to have a state tournament for the JVs.
Oh, yeah.
And one year we won it. So I had the team. We had a team that went 18-0. We went undefeated.
Yeah, you beat us that year because that would have been 80. No, that would have been 90 or 91. 91.
Yeah, Kevin Morrow was the coach, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was on that team. Thanks.
We beat you guys twice that year.
You did. We
beat you in the first game at our place, and then we beat you in the championship game. So
yeah, and that was at Cranbrook in the bowl.
Yeah. That was a fun game. That was a very good team. I had those kids. They clicked on all cylinders. Those guys were good. And, Doug Jolly was my star attackman of that team.
Yeah, he was okay.
Yeah, we had a good team that year. That was a lot of fun. So, favorite game as a player? Well, I had to be against Michigan. My senior year, we were playing them at Michigan, and I happened to be playing crease attack at the time again. They took me off the midfield and put me at crease attack. They used to call me Gramps when I was in midfield because of my blazing speed. Well, Gramps is in the game. Okay, they took me off the midfield and put me in attack because I didn't need to be real fast there. So we're down there, we're playing them, and it was a pretty physical game as they always were. But I got a couple of lucky bounces when I picked up a ground ball and scored. And then with about 2 minutes to go, the game was tied. And we're running around going crazy. And Tom Hardenberg, the other senior attackman, got the ball behind the net. I'm running around up in front. He finally gives me a good pass. I get the pass, shoot it in, went right by the goalie's ear, And that put us up. Well, that was the game-winning goal.
Goal's good.
Goal's good.
Steve with
And
the game winner.
Yeah. Then Val Washington got another goal to ice it. So
Nice.
that was my highlight of my college career.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good one, beating the cross-state arch rival.
Yeah, beating Michigan. That was anytime we can do that.
Now,
That let me tell you, that was the year before that we went down there to play Michigan, and they beat us up pretty good. But during the game, the football team got done practicing, and so they come walking across, and they walked right across our field. The referees stopped the game. We had to let the football players walk across our game, and from that moment on, I've hated U of M. The arrogance of Bo Schembechler was unbelievable.
wow.
We're all yelling at him. They're threatening to beat us up, and it was just ridiculous. So ever since then,
Yeah.
Michigan can take a hike wherever they want to go.
There you
So-
go. I still remember playing at West Point Prep. We would be on the field against, these junior colleges and community colleges from all over the East Coast because we were just, trying to find games. And if we had a game on post and retreat happened, they put the speakers out for retreat for the flag to come down. So all of us, cadet candidates, we all take our helmets off and we're standing at attention. And these kids are leaning on their sticks going, what the hell's wrong with these guys? We're like, it's retreat. Don't you know what? Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So here's the question that I'm not sure if I want to ask, because as officials, we have relived in our opinion, good call that might have been a controversial call or a missed call or a play that you heard the pop, but you didn't. There's all those that I can think of a handful in my head of plays that I've relived in my brain. But there's also a handful of really fun games I've gotten to do, or really memorable games I've gotten to do. Is there one as an official based on the crew, the championship, what's your one official memory game?
Well, there's a bunch of those too. One of my memories is before the MHSA took over. They used to have the championship out of Cranbrook.
Yep.
And at the time, the league was really expanding, and so they you had your A and B division, and then they added a third division.
Yeah.
For the new teams, and I think it was Rockford, and I can't remember who they were playing. One of the other newer teams, and so Clark was running the officials. Clark Bell was running the officials at that time, and so. Me and Roger Patty, and I can't remember who the other guy was. We actually had four. We had the guy at the bench.
The CBO.
CBO, yeah.
Chief bench official.
Yeah. So that was probably a good game. The Rockford coach came up afterwards and congratulated. He said that was the best officiated game he's ever seen.
Wow.
He's ever been in. So that was a good memory. It's always fun to do championship games, and I always liked going out to Catholic Central when Rick was assigning games. I did a bunch of playoff games out there. I'd go out there when the Hill Academy would come down from Toronto.
Oh yeah.
I was always a pleasure to go out there and officiate those guys because they were good athletes. They were tremendous athletes, and they were very gentlemanly on the field. There's a lot of good games to do. So
Yeah.
yeah. There's some aha moments too. I was doing a game a few years ago. I had Rice and Clarkston in a regional final, I think, out in West Bloomfield. And it was a pretty good game, and Clarkson was hanging with him. I think at the time it was, the score was tied. It was a 1-goal game. And Clarkson had the ball. They were running down the field. And the Rice kid was right next to him, checking him. And the Clarkson kid went down. And I didn't throw a flag. And Brian's screaming he wanted to trip. And I said, Brian, I looked at that thing for 3 minutes and trying to decide. I couldn't get a trip out of there. I don't know. Maybe if I could have called a push instead of a trip, but he wanted to trip. And I said, no, it was he was just checking the stick and the kid went down, simultaneous entanglement,
Don't worry. Michael and Brian will see this and call me and remind me that it was a blown call.
Yeah. I went home and I tried to replay that back in my mind. And then I had to go back the next day out to Oxford for his spring tournament out there.
Oh, jeez.
And that was, a somber moment for me because I knew he was.
Oh, jeez.
Because Rice took the ball down. They got the ball and went down and scored. Picked up that ground ball and went down and scored. And had I made a push call or a trip call, they might have scored and it could have been a different outcome. So that was a game. That was a game that haunted me for a while.
Oh, geez. Well, I said we're going to do this for an hour. We've been on here for about an hour. I've got to go wrap up dinner with the kids. We're making homemade pasta tonight. I did want to share one more picture. This was that night, that game that we did with me, you, and Garbs.
Yeah,
That's that De La Salle North game.
Yeah. Yep.
And you brought a camera to the table with you and asked for a picture before the game, and I thought that was really weird. And then you said at the bar stools that might have been your last one. So are you going to do any more youth? Are you just done doing college? What's next for you?
I'm done doing college.
Career?
I was really looking forward to the opening of the season. I got myself in pretty decent shape. I go to boxing class twice a week, and I go walking with my wife every day for a half hour, 45 minutes. So I got myself in pretty good shape, and I was really looking forward for this to be probably my last season. I wanted to give it one. I didn't want to go out and, on a sour note. I wanted to go out doing something I like to do and go out on my own terms.
I hear you. Well, I've always enjoyed reffing with you. And like I said, when we decided we're going to start this thing, I could not believe the stories that I played against you in that state final for the JV. I played against you your first year at Grosse Pointe. And I'm going, I've reffed with the guy for 10 years and never put 2 and 2 together. I never knew you founded a program. I never knew you played at state. So these conversations, we're going to talk to a lot of people, current coaches, current players, boys, girls, east side, west side, mid-Michigan. We're just going to have conversations and have fun with it, because if I don't have any games to ref, games to coach, I'm shooting in the front yard with my son, who you just met, but I'm getting stir crazy, so we might as well talk some lacrosse.
Well, I appreciate you calling me, and I'm honored, quite honored that you would call me. And I've enjoyed this. I just reminder to everybody, I hope everybody's safe and healthy, and everybody stays that way through this crisis that we're going through. So,
amen, buddy.
Thank you, Chris, for calling me. I enjoyed it. It was really nice. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Amen, buddy. Have a great night. Tell your wife thank you for letting us borrow you for an hour.
Yep, she has a bottle of wine waiting for me to open.
I'm going to go make dinner. See you, buddy.
Take care, Chris. Bye.